of engaging our members in every union in the province, of building our collective power, of strengthening our relationships with our communities and our allies, and escalating the fight against government austerity and corporate greed. And by the way, these fightbacks have also shown us that phrases like mass strike, general strike, and even illegal strike, they're not just empty words. They're tools that our workers, our unions, and our movement can and will consider, if needed, in the struggles ahead. We have a lot of struggles every day I get up. There's a new one. I listen to the news, there's a new one. New crap, there's all kinds of crap going on. Sorry for my language. Speaking of another struggle, just yesterday afternoon, our Liquor Board Employees Division rallied inside an LCBO store in downtown Toronto to draw attention to their demands for fair wages, for more full-time jobs, and an end to the Ford government's privatization of liquor and alcohol sales. And we're all acutely aware that while many businesses and workplaces were closed for public safety reasons during the pandemic, guess what? LCBO workers put themselves and their loved ones at risk, keeping the LCBO open and operating. Mind you, the term buck a beer kind of comes to mind, but hey, they did that. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our concern over our 400 OPSU-SEPCO members currently working at the Ontario Science Centre who are angry and confused about the Premier's genius plan to move that educational attraction from such a beautiful and much larger green space to a smaller and more congested space at Ontario Place. What's that about? So my members are fearing layoffs. They're fearing job loss, lots of job losses, because there was no consultation with the Toronto Region Conservation Authority. There was no consultation with the two densely populated city neighborhoods with largely racialized and immigrant families. No consultation with the union. So what's new? Just another example of the Ford government leaving vulnerable communities behind. I want to tell you a short story about a woman living across the street at Flemington Park, across from this beautiful, beautiful science center. 2 kids. She took them to the science center very, very often, all the time. Fast forward to today. One is a physicist, the other is a professor. She credits their love for science for that they went to the Ontario Science Centre on such a consistent basis. So, I and my OPSU-SEPCO cousins are happy to join you here today to celebrate May Day and to commit ourselves to building solidarity, building our power, building the fight back together. And we hope we can count on seeing all of you and your organizations out in full force on June 3rd for the province-wide Enough is Enough Day of Action. We must empower each other. We must unite. Today, we must hold our heads high and continue to fight for the greater good. Together, we stand. Right? Otherwise, who's got the power?
Me!
What kind of power? Who's got the power? We've got the power. And what kind of power? Workers' power. Thank you. Solidarity to all. Merci.
Unite! Unite!
Unite! Unite!
Workers of the world, unite!
Unite!
Workers of the world, unite!
Unite!
Okay, thank you, sister. You know, and victory to PSAC, that's for sure. The sister is right. If they win, we all win. And I can give you a prime example. Some of you won't remember. You probably weren't even around then, but a lot of people will. Back in 1981, when the postal workers went out on strike for 42 days. For what? For maternity leave. That led to paternal leave. So now we know that's spread across. So, you know, when one wins, we all win. So let's be on the PSA picket lines as long as they need us. Okay, our next speaker, well, we'll actually be two speakers, but I'll introduce them one at a time because they're going to share their time. The first speaker is Barry Weislater, and he's a union organizer, writer, editor, teacher, and federal secretary of Socialist Action. He is the chair of the NDP Socialist Caucus and is a steering committee member of the Workers' Action Movement. Barry was elected 3 times to the executive board of the Ontario Public Service Employees Union, starting in 1991, and he was on the provincial council of OSSTF when they moved the teachers from that union into OSSTF, and was a long-time delegate to Toronto and York Region Labour Council. So he will share his time with Kerry, who I will introduce in a few moments.
Sisters and brothers, how are you doing? Thank you for hanging in this weather. You know, May Day is no picnic, especially not in weather like this. May Day is a fiery revolt against a dying system. It is a bold act of rebellion against minority class rule. It is an affirmation of the destiny of the working class to build socialism on the ashes of the old order. To those cynics who say revolutionary change is impossible, I say, have you forgotten 1917? Have you forgotten 1949? Have you forgotten Vietnam and revolutionary Cuba? From the Paris Commune of 1871 to the resistance today against Macron's bid to raise the age of retirement, there is a revolutionary continuity. This International Workers' Day, we applaud one of the biggest strikes in decades here. The Public Service Alliance says, enough is enough. We will not pay for the inflation that we did not create. Indigenous people say there can be no reconciliation without restitution. Women say there's no going back to backstreet abortionists. Queer people will not return to the closet. Opponents of the inter-imperialist war in Ukraine say abolish NATO, defend the right of the Donbass people to self-determination, negotiate peace, halt the Russian bombardment of Western Ukraine. Peace, don't escalate the war into a terminal nuclear nightmare. To the NDP brass, we say this. Stop propping up the minority Liberal government. Stop voting for war budgets. End subsidies to the nature-killing oil and gas industry. Nationalize the resource sector under workers and Indigenous control. Stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people for boycott, divestment, and sanctions against the Zionist state. Stand with Cuba, Venezuela, Syria, and Iran against imperialist intervention. My friends, sisters and brothers, siblings all, China is not the enemy. We say build homes, not drones. Cooperation on the left, let's face it, it's never been easy. But if ever there was a time for collaboration against threats to human survival, that time is now. To beat back the right wing, to save our water, air, and soil, to stem the tide of authoritarian regression, we must work together. Socialist Action advocates the united front. In the unions, the Workers' Action Movement demands organize the unorganized, no to union raiding, for international working class action against trade wars, cold and hot wars, repression, and military occupation. We say fight for union democracy, pay union officials a working class salary, a worker's wage. The NDP Socialist Caucus unites the left inside the only mass labor party in North America and demands public ownership. Socialist Action advances transitional demands to increase the confidence and capacity of the working class to achieve gains and ultimately to win power. The Municipal Socialist Alliance and Vote Socialist Vancouver call for a moratorium on residential rents and mortgage payments. We say no evictions, cancel student debt, make education free. We say expropriate the big landlords, seize vacant habitable spaces. No one should die on the streets. Build accessible social housing on a mass scale. Nationalize the telecoms. The truth is, the only solution is revolution. Join Socialist Action today. Let's make the revolution together. And soon you'll be hearing from the Socialist candidate for Mayor of Toronto. But back to the chair. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, comrade. Yes, and our next speaker is Kerry Bellew, is the Municipal Social Alliance candidate for Mayor of Toronto. He was the MSA candidate in Scarborough Centre Ward 21, gaining 1,800 votes. Kerry, a member of Socialist Action, is the first Tamil Canadian to seek the mayor's office in Toronto. He emigrated from Sri Lanka as a child and successfully resisted illegal eviction of his family at the Ontario Landlord and Tenant Board during the 2020 emergency lockdown. Kerry is a founding member of the Scarborough Tenant Union, a leading voice of Toronto Acorn, and a committed member of Justice for Workers. He was a shop steward in United Steelworkers, where he fought for better working conditions and was the recipient of a 2019 Union Leadership Award. Please welcome the next Mayor of Toronto, Kerry.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm proud to be here, standing in shoulder with brothers and sisters on an International Solidarity Day. Workers united will never be defeated. So, I'm Giri Vadivelu. I'm running to be the next mayor of Toronto. I'm the first Tamil Canadian to run for the office, and I'm the only socialist in the race. It's not, the number is very small. Socialist is only one, actually. I believe good housing is a human right. Efficient public transit is a right. Climate justice is a right. So are fully funded public health services, public long-term care. Toronto is in crisis. It's a failed capitalist system that stops cities and put private profit before people. Only radical socialist measures offer real solutions. Municipal Socialist Alliance calls for immediate mass social housing construction, expropriation of giant landlords, and free public transit. That's how we fight climate. We seek repair of our schools and cut off the police budget by at least 50% to make that happen. We demand climate justice agenda based on making the polluters pay to clean up the mess. We call for replacement of the strong mayor powers with grassroots participatory budget process. We insist on steep taxation of the properties of the big business and the rich who keeps us oppressed. It is time to tear down the waterfront blight known as Gardner Expressway and construct pedestrian bike and bike-friendly blowout instead of investing billions into repairing the Gardner that is going to fall apart anyway. Increase the green space to fight climate change, repair the science center in Don Mills, no private spa at Ontario Place, and more park land, not parking space. We will continue to protest the violence perpetrated by Toronto police. We will continue to stand with marginalized communities. We will continue to demand defund of police. Ontario Premier Duckworth says, don't vote for anyone who wants to cut the police budget. And we say, don't vote for anybody who voted for the police budget. Let's build community power, working class power, from the bottom up, organize and fight for fundamental change. Several past and present MPs and city councillors are running for Toronto mayor, including so-called progressives. And we know they are status quo. It is important to review their track record. They voted repeatedly to preserve this capitalist power and privilege. Today again, they offer vague slogans and vague themes. An affordable, softer and caring city. Who doesn't want that? But without building militant mass action against the government and corporations of the rich, nothing is possible. The struggle decides, not the law. Fortunately, there is a working class radical alternative to the same old, same old. I represent the United Front of the Social Justice Activists and the Left Municipal Socialist Alliance. We are building a grassroots movement for revolutionary change. We will not wait for the status quo to give us an opportunity. We will strive for a workers' government at every level, a vital step towards socialist transformation of our city. Join us, vote Socialist, coast to coast, vote Socialist. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary and Barry. Comrades, thank you for braving the rain. And I know it's very difficult. I know some of our marshals have taken 2 lanes of the road. If you are willing to do that, we would invite you to do that. It's our International Workers' Day. The streets belong to us, and we invite you to take the streets. Great. So, and again, I just want to remind our speakers that our time limit is supposed to be 5 minutes per speaker. Great. And our next speaker will be Abraham Astaraki. He is a member of the WPI, the Workers' Communist Party of Iran, a York University political science graduate, a true believer in socialism, a passionate advocate of human rights, laborers' and women's and minorities' rights, and a steadfast political activist seeking equality, welfare, and well-being of society. Also an environmentalist and egalitarian.
Hello, everyone. May Day, International Workers or Labor Day, is the day of glorification of all hard-working and relentless workers of the whole world as the true wealth owners and creators. And relentless workers of the whole world are the real true owners and creators of the whole world wealth. This hopeful day belongs to oppressed workers around the globe to celebrate their own strength, endurance, tolerance, and fight back against the backbreaking and tough living conditions imposed by the cruel and merciless capitalist system. May 1st is the awakening moment of reminder and awareness against forgetfulness and indifference to the rough and harsh conditions under which historically all workers have always been fighting, resisting, and surviving. This is the true day of unity, solidarity, and fight back for workers' unquestionable rights. Globally, workers' rights are intertwined with women's rights, interrelated with minorities and LGBTQ's rights, interconnected with freedom and equality, and go hand in hand with peace, anti-war, anti-militarization, and anti-fascism. This year's International Workers' Day in Iran is a special day since it is concurrent with the Women Life Freedom Revolution. It is concurrent with the Women Life Freedom Revolution, an uprising on the bloody streets of different cities in Iran. Over the past 7 months in Iran, hundreds of brave hearts and revolutionary protesters got shot and killed by the Islamic regime armed forces and militias. Thousands of protesters were imprisoned. Many of them were tortured, and themselves or their families are under unbearable physical and mental pressure by the Islamic regime intelligence guards. The Islamic theocratic and fascist dictatorship in Iran is committing nasty and unforgivable crimes against Iranians, like chemical poisoning of young female school children who break Islamic regime's mandatory hijab or head and body covering primitive rules, and the regime is still unpunished, not held accountable or responsive by the international organizations and Western governments. They close their eyes. International organizations and Western governments close their eyes and keep silent and inactive on all these atrocities in Iran. Women Life Freedom movement in Iran is very progressive, avant-garde, revolutionary, and taboo-breaking. It is completely in line and conjunction with workers, women, children, minorities, LGBTQs, teachers, retirees, syndicates, unions, and environmentalists. Since the beginning of Women Life Freedom in Iran, Women Life Freedom movement in Iran, several labor union members and syndicate activists, for instance, oil and petrochemical industry workers, bus and truck drivers, teachers, retirees, and different other private and public sectors workers and employees who are seeking and demanding workers' rights to better living conditions and fair wages are under exhausting pressures by the Islamic State, Iran, and are on a strike to resist and fight back against the oppressive, brutal, and savage system ruling over the country. Thank you so much.
Put your mic closer so you don't have to strain your voice as much.
Recently, 20 well-known and recognized Iranian domestic unions, syndicates, groups, and assemblies of workers, teachers, students, women, civil and human rights activists published their progressive, avant-garde minimum demands of Iran's independent trade unions and civic organizations' Charter of Rights in response to the revolutionary situation in Iran and in defense and support of all minorities and the oppressed people seeking freedom, equality, and justice by demanding the abolishment of the gender apartheid and capitalist Islamist fascist state in Iran, and in complete opposition and disagreement with foreign interference into their domestic affairs through plotting and conspiracy of stealing people's revolution by imposing war or puppet figures from outside the borders. Certainly, the true sound of revolution echoes from inside Iran. We are here to support them and be their voice, and we urge the whole world to support and back up women, life, freedom, revolution in Iran. Universal freedom, equality, justice, and workers' better living conditions are inevitably and undoubtedly inseparable from every single country. Therefore, a better world is tied with a better Iran. We also demand and request the recognition of May 1st, International Workers' Day in Canada. In the end, in solidarity with Iranians, for a better world, for a better Iran, let's all chant, women, women, life, freedom.
Women, life, freedom! Women, life, freedom! Women, life, freedom!
I'm so sorry, I do apologize. I got allergic to the rain. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
I just do want to say that Western governments and our imperialists, they are incapable of spreading democracy, they're incapable of defending workers' rights, and incapable of defending women's rights. So the call for sanctions on Iran is repudiated by the Labor May Day Committee.
That's right.
Our next speaker is Marvin Elford. Marvin Elford is the president of the Amalgamated Transit Union Local 113, representing 12,000 transit workers in Toronto.
Loud and clear. I'll do my best to be loud and clear. Just waiting for a few people to come behind me. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, and thank you for inviting me to speak. My name is Marvin Alfred. I represent the nearly 12,000 workers who operate and maintain the TTC. The last little while has been difficult for TTC workers. The TTC is in the news way often for the wrong reasons. It seems like every day there's a new service breakdown, violent event, or privatization fiasco. The problems we are facing are not new. They're not because of the pandemic, or they're not because of the events beyond our control. They exist because generations of underinvestment and mismanagement. TTC ridership has been a decline for a decade, and the response has been to increase fares and lower service. But we can't get riders to come back onto transit service that doesn't exist. Public transit has become a shelter of last resort for people experiencing homelessness. They have brought in more police and shelter workers to move people off the TTC. But you can't move people into homes and shelter beds that do not exist. At the TTC, we've been fighting for years to protect quality jobs in public transit from constant, aggressive contracting out. Entry-level jobs that provide security and open doors to training and career opportunities have become precarious, dead-end gig work. We can't find a path out of poverty through a job that doesn't exist. I'm here in solidarity with all of you because we've had the same experiences as workers, as transit riders, as parents, as patients, and as students, as people just trying to live in this city. We can all feel that they're contracting out the services and supports that make a city livable, inclusive, and sustainable. Privatization has proven over and over to not work. Metrolinx is a failure. The crosstown is years late and massively over budget. Brand new stations are being redone before even a single rider stepped inside. Why? Why is that happening? It's so that well-connected corporate insiders and their lobbyists make money. The mayor's race is an opportunity to turn this tide. We at Local 113 is working towards helping elect someone who can stand up for workers, quality jobs, and someone who will stand up for transit service and transit riders. We're looking forward to working with you with a new progressive mayor who will bring all levels of government back to the table to deliver for people. I want to thank everybody for being out here in this inclement weather, but this inclement weather will not dampen the resolve and solidarity of workers standing together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, brother. Our next speaker is Patty Coates. She's the president of the Ontario Federation of Labour, better known as the OFL, Canada's largest provincial labour federation. She is the first woman to lead the OFL. Yes. Patty was first elected to the OFL at the 13th Bicentennial Convention as Secretary-Treasurer to help rally the members and the resources of a united labour movement in Ontario. Patty is an education assistant and a proud long member of the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation of Ontario. Please welcome Sister Patty Coates.
Have to be careful here. Health and safety issue. Always health and safety first for workers. We have to think about the workers first. It's so great to be here, and unfortunately it's raining, but I will tell you, rain and I go along. When I was first elected as the first woman president of the Ontario Federation of Labour, and we walked up to Queen's Park, it was pouring rain, just like this. So thank you all for being here. It's really important that we gather on May Day for International Workers' Day, because it's the workers that build our communities. It's the workers that make our economy work. It's not the big bosses, it's the workers. And as we're here, we need to think about our gains, but also some of our barriers, some of the struggles that we have. But I want to talk first about what we have won, some of our gains in just over the past 5-6 months. And you've heard it from other speakers, where we gathered around the education workers when Ford dropped Bill 28, a very nasty, anti-union, anti-worker bill. And it was the labor movement, but it went beyond the labor movement. It was communities, it was parents, it was everyday workers, non-union workers that were supporting the education workers. And we fought back. We fought back the big government boss, and he repealed Bill 28. And 2 weeks after that, the courts struck down Bill 128, another government bill that oppressed workers with low wages. And we won in the courts. Yes, they're appealing, and you all should be angry because he's using your tax dollars to fight against workers who deserve fair wages, real wage increases. And we know that Bill 124 caused a crisis in our health care. We're losing staff in our health care. It's causing a crisis in our education system as well. We've also had some other wins. We're seeing collective agreements that are gaining wages, pay increases that are more than the cost of living. And that's what workers need. But let me talk about some of the struggles. And it's not struggles of just unionized workers. These are struggles of all workers, of injured workers, of equity-deserving groups. They need real wages. We see seniors who are pension paycheck, that can't afford food. We see students who are now paying high costs for their lines of credits and student loans who can't find affordable housing. We see those that are on ODSP and OW who can't find a place to live, who have less than $3 a day to buy groceries. Shame. And that's government. The government can build policies to lift everyone up, and they choose not to do that. Shame on this government. Shame. And we see workers who have lost their buying power because their wages are not keeping up to the cost of living. And that's why the Ontario Federation of Labour, of over 1 million workers, have launched a campaign called Enough is Enough, because workers have had enough as enough. And we're seeing workers striking back. We've had more workers out on strike in the past 5 months than we've seen in over 10 years because they are fed up and they're standing up against their bosses, saying they need real wages. And we know that in our communities, in our equity-deserving groups, and with other community groups, that we need affordable housing, rent control. We need affordable gas.